right now. I hope we will be streaming into Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, just so you on the Zoom side are aware of where we are. It is sending data now, so hopefully we should be live shortly. As soon as I see that red circle. Okay, we are live on those platforms. We are streaming on YouTube and LinkedIn and on our Facebook page. I want to welcome everyone to the call today. Hi, guys. My name is Lisa Muth. I am Beth Copeland's executive assistant, and I help here on the GCBN team to facilitate the calls or whatever needs to be done. And so I'm so excited to be here for Living Well Wednesday. We have our hosts today. We have Jessica Banner, who is our faithful friend who has been on our Wellness Wednesday and Living Well panel for a very long time. And we also have Aisha Edwards, who is part of our GCBN and GGG team member here. And we are going to have a conversation. I just want to do some announcements and share the SHIFT acronym. If you're not familiar, which if you've been around GCBN for any amount of time, you know that Miss Beth speaks in acronyms. God talks to her through acronyms. And so this year, our acronym is SHIFT. And so I want to just cover that really fast. Sometimes I forget to do that, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to forget today. So SHIFT, the S in SHIFT is surrender still systems. And we're surrendering those systems in our belief system, our operating system, our regulating system, and our navigating system. And that seems like a whole lot of things, but it really is kind of all encompassing. So we have systems that we've been operating in, and they may not be serving us well today in 2026. So we need to evaluate those systems, figure out what we need to do to shift into the next systems and start working in new operating systems, new belief systems, new navigating systems, and new regulating systems. And I think we all could say we probably do need a little tune up in that area. At least I do. So the H in SHIFT is heighten our heartbeat for Him. So we want to be so in tune with God that no matter what is going on around us, that we are listening to Him. We are following Him. We are so in tune with Him that we don't have to guess, we don't have to doubt, we don't have to stress, which there are some doubts that may come, there are some stressors that may come, but our heartbeat is so heightened for Him that we are walking with Him and He is talking to us and we are spending that time with Him, that we are knowing where we need to take our next step. Okay. And we have a community here in GCBN that is helping you and walking alongside of you with our Transformation Tuesday panel, or our Transformation Tuesday conversation that we have every Tuesday with our Living Well Wednesday panel. We also have a Friday New Nugget. We also have networking opportunities for you to be able to connect, to reach out to friends. Like I could call Aisha and be like, hey, I'm struggling in this area, or Jess, I need to walk through this thing. Can you help me out? And just to be able to have that opportunity, it's amazing. And that goes into our I, right? Our I is ignite, intentional, and influential impact. So we are impacting, or we are being impacted by what we take in our eyes, what we take in our ears, what we hear in our heart or feel in our heart. Even in the radio in the car, you're driving down the road, you get the news on the radio, or you're listening to music on the radio. All of that is impacting you in some way, and it's influencing you. And you can also be an influence. So we have to watch kind of what's coming in, right? But we also need to be around people that are going to help us to get to the next level, to shift to where we're going. But we also have the power within us too to help others shift. And so when you are talking about igniting that fire, right, for the impact that you're going to have in your influence, those around you and who you're influencing. So that's what we're talking about. We have the F in SHIFT. Oh, I want to note too that I is the gear shifter. If you've seen our graphic, I don't know if you can see this, but our graphic, it has the gear shifter. And so just to kind of give you that visual on the shift. And then the F is faith forward, future focus. And then Miss Beth threw in forgive. Some of us can stand in, we're looking forward to our future. We are focused on our future, but we're not able to quite reach it yet because there are some things that we still have to forgive. And so that I think, and Jessica, you could probably talk about this too, but we kind of freeze. We're like, oh, that forgiveness thing, that forgiveness part, but it is so crucial into you getting to the next level. So into shifting into what God has for you. So faith forward, future focus, and forgive. And the T is transition truth to trust. We know that faith is not seeing the thing. It's trusting in the thing, right? Faith is what is the verse? I just lost it, but the evidence of things hoped for, not what you're seeing, right? So we can trust even if we can't see. We can trust in God and what he's doing, even if we don't know how he's going to do it or what he's doing in that process. So we are transitioning our truth to trust him. Okay. So we have the truth, we have the word, we have his promises, but we are actually trusting that and walking that out. So I want to share that with you. I want to give you our quick announcements. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica. Every Monday we have a prayer call, 9:00 Eastern time on the Zoom room. If you do not have our newsletter, you can reach out to Rose or myself, or you can email info@gcbnetwork.com. That will allow you to get into that newsletter, and that newsletter has a code. You have to sign up and register. And that's just to keep everybody safe on the Zoom side, because sometimes it's not safe if you don't have a registration, okay? So that's on Monday at 9. Every Tuesday, and we just did it yesterday, we have a Transformation Tuesday call. And so you can check those out and watch the replays. Every Wednesday, we have Living Well Wednesday, and we have our panel of Living Well Wednesday representatives. The first 2 Wednesdays is Jessica Banner and Julie Mills. The third Wednesday, I always mess this up. The third Wednesday is just Julie Mills. The fourth Wednesday is Chi Chi. And then the fifth Wednesday, if we have one, we'll have a guest speaker. And then at the end of the month, we have Shantaine, and she comes and wraps everything up in a nice bow and kind of ties it all together. So that is our Wellness Wednesday panel. Every first Friday of the month, we have a First Friday New Nugget, and we just had Larissa come on the call last week to do that. So check that replay out. But it's a business owner, a GCBN member, or corporate sponsor who's coming to give you a nugget, something to do right away in your business, something to take away throughout the month to do in your business or to learn from. And so it's just a new nugget for you. I want to highlight God Golf and Girls. That's coming up August 14, 15, and 16. If you do not have your tickets yet, you can get those. I would highly suggest you, please, please, please share God Golf and Girls. Share it with a friend. Find somebody to bring with you. And it's going to be an amazing time. I don't want you to think of golf and just be like, tune it all out. It is more than just golf. It's a lot of God. It's a lot of girls, and golf is a portion of the Saturday. So, and we've got testimonies. We have on our website, gcbnetwork.com. We have the GCBN links out there so you can kind of see what the conference is. There's testimonials and things like that. I will say that we're trying to shorten the curve for Dr. Jess and Miss Beth as they are away. Beth will be away for the entire month of June. So if you need anything, you can reach out. Can you stand right there for me? Thank you. Stand right here for me. Hi. Stand right there. If you need anything for the month of June, just reach out to Rose or myself. We'll be glad to help you. We're just trying to hold that space for Beth to be able to process, to be able to grieve, to be able to reset, whatever it is that she needs in that season right now to do. And we're trying to really hold that place for them, for Dr. Jess and her. Rose and I we're at the helm. We're ready to go. We're here for you. If you have questions or need anything, just reach out. Beth sends her love. She is grieving. Her heart is crushed, and she's trying to just kind of process through that. And that takes a while, as you know. So thank you so much for the opportunity to serve you guys and to give her that space. I think that, we have in July 18th, we have our next networking opportunity, and that is going to be at Cornerstone Co-working starting at 9:30 in the morning. We'll have Jason Davis, who's a GCBN member. We'll have Vicki Jumper, who's a GCBN corporate sponsor, and they're going to be presenting on the platform. That is a registration, so we need to know who's coming so that we can prepare and have that. So you can bring a friend. It's not just for GCBN members. It's for GCBN members or non-GCBN members, but GCBN members, you have perks, and so you'll have a discounted ticket there. Okay, I think that's all the announcements. We got that out of the way. We are so glad that you are with us today. If you're tuning in on the Facebook side, let us know where you're tuning in from. We have GCBN members all over the United States and even in Belgium, and we're launching global soon. So we're excited to have you there. We also have Cynthia Lyles over here on Zoom. We have Aisha, and we have Jessica Banner. So Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much for your patience. And if you need anything, just holler.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. I know you've got to be somewhere, but we thank you for getting us started today. And we just want to thank you as a community, honestly, right now about wrapping around Beth. We would just ask for continued prayers. Just keep lifting up the Copeland family right now. We're giving them a space as a community and a team to have the time they need, but definitely we as a community can continue to wrap around her in this season with our prayers. So we really appreciate that. And we love you, Beth and Jess, Dr. Jess, and the rest of the Copeland family. So we are, speaking of shift, we're kind of shifting gears today. And so this year we've been in Living Well Wednesday, we have been slowly progressing our way through the acronym each month. So we started in January with the S and we ended last month with the T. So we've kind of rounded out our word shift. So the rest of this year, we're going to still be sticking with our theme this year, but we're going to talk about some different elements. We're going to talk about how do we shift in our leadership? How do we shift in our families? How do we shift in our businesses? So now we're going into application, the application half of the year, right? And so today, for the months of June and July, we're going to be talking about leadership shift. And so here in the month of June, we're going to be talking about where it begins. Leadership begins with us. So how do we shift within ourselves? And next month, we'll talk about how do we shift more in the organization. So the next 2 months, we are talking about the leadership shift. And so this month, it starts with me, personal leadership, the whole 360, right? And we didn't meet last week. We wanted to honor that space for Mr. Jerome. And so we're kind of combining last week and this week together. So we're going to be talking about mastering our mind and stewarding our heart today. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and read our scriptures. And our first scripture today is Romans 12:2. It says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will." And our second verse today is Proverbs 4:23. "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." So when we talk about personal stewardship, we're going to be talking about our mind and our heart. And that's not the only things we steward when we're doing that. We want to steward our bodies and our spiritual life and our relationships. But since we'll be talking more about relationships later in the year, we're going to focus a lot on our mind and our heart today. So welcome, welcome. And to get started, we know that God designed our thoughts and emotions to work together. In our Stoic society, we don't always know that so much. Emotions get a bad rap, right? But they are both important and both designed by God. But first today, we're going to talk about what it looks like to master our own mind, right? And in the therapy world and in psychology, we have a theory called cognitive behavioral theory, right? And in that theory, and you also have, it's going to escape my mind, so I'm just going to leave it alone. It's the idea that our thoughts come first in sort of this cyclical process. We have our thoughts that influence our emotions, and our emotions influence our actions. And so in that theory, you tend to go after the thoughts first because it's really kind of considered the root space. And there's a whole lot more in psychology. We're not going to bust wide open in the thoughts emotions battle right this minute. But when we think about that, it's all important. And when I was looking up this, I was looking up how many times in the Word does God talk about the stewardship of our mind, our thoughts, our and understanding. And it's referenced over 100 times in Scripture. Nearly 100 times the Lord talks about our thoughts, our mind, and our understanding. And inside of those words, inside of all of those scriptures, we often see that the word is clear on how important our mind is. And we get commands like taking our thoughts captive and renewing our minds. And when I think about those words, taking thoughts captive, renewing our minds, those are verbs. They're action words, right? The Lord invites us to action when it comes to our mind. So we can see that it's important that we take intentional action when it comes to stewarding our mind, that it's not something he just does for us. It's something he's invited us to participate in and be actively and intentionally involved in. So my first question today is, what are some things we can do to be intentional and take action to master our thoughts, our mind? So I'm throwing there, you're still here, Lisa, so you have a few minutes. You can give your thoughts on that. I should be thinking about it. What are some things we
Yeah, so I'm looking at your notes and I'm like super excited because I'm like, this is like a perfect segue into the second half of the year, you know, when everybody kind of gets in that mid-year slump and you start thinking about what wasn't done, who did this to you, what, you know, all the different stuff, the kind of weird stuff that we go through as human, and it's human nature. And I'm like, this is a wonderful topic. And when I look at your question and some of your notes, the first question that comes up is, why is this important? Like, why did God focus so much on stewarding your thoughts? Why did he feel that that was such a good place to start living? You know, steward your thoughts first. Okay. Then we can go on. And then to answer your question, what are some of the things that we can do to be intentional and take action to master our thoughts? Now, that is a very loaded question, but I can tell you, as someone who has lived, go ahead.
I only ask loaded questions. You can ask.
Yeah. That's great because you can talk about it forever. Yeah. I love it. It's so loaded. But just personally, for somebody who has lived in the city of having to manage thoughts and having thoughts out of control my entire life, I can tell you it has been a process. And you know, you're the clinician, I'm more the applied version of the behavioral science and behavioral health. I can tell you one thing: if you do not master your thoughts, on the other end, it affects every single area of your life. And from the clinical standpoint, learning the techniques to do that, we can come see you. We can come see what's the other lady that's the clinician to teach us how to do that. It is a process that has to be very deliberate, very concentrated, very strategic, and you can actually rewire your thoughts, your brain, your neural pathways, and become an entirely different person on the other end. And I'm living proof of that because I used to live there. Okay, just out of control thoughts. All right, this is out of control. Yeah.
Okay, I'll share. I thought of the verse, 2 Corinthians 10:5. I don't think it's in your notes. And if you did, I'm sorry, I was getting us on the thing. So I was listening, but I don't know. But it says casting down, this is KJV. 2 Corinthians 10:5. It says, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to obedience to Christ. And I've heard it said where you literally reach out and snatch the thought and make it captive unto Christ, make it obedient, captivate it and make it obedient unto Christ. And I thought of too, I Googled really quickly, how many thoughts do we have every day? And we have anywhere from 6,000 to 7,000 thoughts per day. Some of us probably have more than that, but just on an average, they did a brain scan in 2020, and there was this thing that said 62.
All the overthinkers.
Yeah, mine's crowded out. Okay,
that's
no,
me.
actually, it says 6,000 to 70,000. I'm sorry, 6,000 to 70,000. So that makes more sense because I'm like 6,000 to. I feel like I just had 6,000 thoughts in like the whole first 20 minutes of the conversation.
I was going to say it. I think there's a study that says women speak about 40,000 words a day. So
I believe
probably on the high 70.
Go ahead. But finish your thought.
No, and I was thinking on Tuesday when I think it was last Tuesday, whenever Dawn came and spoke, Dr. Dawn, and she said, and I'm paraphrasing, so you guys go back and watch it. It was a great conversation, but she talked about if you had one negative thought or you said one negative bad thing to yourself every day, one thing, you have 365 thoughts that you have to rewire your brain about if you just had one. And that's pretty powerful. So so I guess your initial question was, what are some things to be intentional to take action? Is that what you said? So you have to literally snatch the thought, right? And you have to, I say have to because I feel like it's a have to. There's a non-negotiable about that because you do have an enemy that seeks to kill and steal and destroy. And so in our thought patterns, not that he can like get in your mind, but we speak a lot too. So he knows what we're speaking. He knows the thoughts that we're, because we're vocalizing those out loud. So it's important to snatch that and be intentional about it. Maybe I mean, you could write it down or you could literally just snatch the thought. But do we do that? No. Should we do that? Yes.
It's something we have to learn to do, because it seems like it's so far from us. Why would we want to be involved with something that is kind of intangible? Like we can't touch a thought. So why does that have so much power? But it does. God's thoughts towards us has power. God created an entire world, a universe off of words that probably came from what he thought about us. It's a lot of power in that. So, that's why this session is really important, because it kind of adds a human layer to something that we struggle with, our thoughts. Yeah, this is something that guides the rest of your life, your entire life.
And I think it's hard because you get into that. As humans, there's so often we get in these spaces where we feel like we don't have control. And there's a lot we don't control. There's a lot of illusion and control, right? And God is the ultimate controller, but there is much in the world we don't actually control. But sometimes we lose sight of what we do actually have power and authority over. And that often happens with our thoughts and emotions. A lot of times we feel like we're at the mercy of our thoughts, at the mercy of our emotions. And that makes sense to some degree with our neurobiology. That God wired this system, that he really made us a self-protective creature. He designed us for resilience. He designed us to live in a broken world and survive it, right? And so he had good plans for us to prosper and have life in the earth. And so, but one of the things that happens in the neurobiology is when we have these experiences and things happen, because we do live in a broken world and none of us escapes that, is that we have this survival system that kind of wires those things in, right? And the things we did to survive get wired in with that, especially if there was no resolve. Like if something happened and we never really kind of returned to safety, the brain doesn't even store that the same way, right? We call that trauma memory, and trauma memory does not store in your biology the same way what you ate for breakfast did, right? So those things are not the same, and the activation of those things is not the same. That's why when you recall a trauma memory, you can feel just as scared, just as panicked, just as angry as you did the day it happened, because what essentially that means is that your brain never got to return to safety around that event. And so it stored it as this is an active threat because there was no resolve, right? And so think about that. One, we develop beliefs around whatever happened, right? When someone treated us in a way that didn't constitute the truth of our value, right? When someone treated us in a way that didn't take into consideration our worth, our value, our identity, that action begins the lie, right? That motive, that action, that behavior starts the series of the lie. And that gets wired in there with that memory, right? The things we did to survive sometimes feed that even more, right? Like if I'm 5 and I run and hide in my bed, I don't think anything of that at 5, but what do I think about that when I'm 25, 35, 45, 55, and I'm still hiding in my house from conflict? Those beliefs, that we start taking on beliefs about that, right? And so our thoughts are so rooted in those beliefs, and that gets so rooted in that survival system. And so it is so important that we often feel at the mercy of that. But the truth is, one, God sent Jesus that we would be redeemed, but he also sent Jesus that we would be healed, that those things can be healed in our mind and our heart, right? That was something I know I talked to you guys back at Easter, that God really just totally revealed to me the depth of, no, he didn't stop at redemption. He continued to the healing because he knew we needed not just the covering of sin. We needed the healing as the byproduct of that. And so when I think about what do we do? I love what Cynthia said. She said, meditate in the word of God, inundate your brain with the truth. Because here's the thing, seed cannot return void. The seed cannot return void. Even if you don't believe it today, even if your heart and your emotions and your mind are going, I can't listen. There's been seasons of my life, the only part of the Bible I could read was the Psalms. And even then, some days it was begrudgingly, if we're being honest. Okay. But I knew
I
it was
feel you.
important to continue to sow the seed, even in the darkest of days, because the seed cannot return void. And so it's important to implant that. And she also said, guard your eyes and ears, protect what's coming in and out. Sometimes that means wise counsel and not being mindful of what's not so wise counsel when we're taking in our thoughts. You know, when I am fully full of resentment for someone, I don't go find somebody who's going to just pat me on the back and tell me I'm right or get up in arms with me. I go talk to somebody who's going to hold me accountable. They'll have empathy and compassion for me, but they're also going to say, let's look at this. Let's look at your heart, right?
Mhm.
And so when we think about taking our thoughts captive and mastering those things, we can be in the word. We should be talking to the Lord. We should seek wise counsel. You know, like I said, trauma memory, for some of us, that may mean counseling. That may mean talking to a coach or a pastoral person, because we may need a little help to navigate those beliefs. One of the reasons I left mental health in the hospital world was because I was tired going, Lord, you have more in the healing process, because what I was seeing is we're not getting at the root here. You know, like I'm tired of band-aids. and and so I was like, okay, which is when I transitioned to this trauma processing model I've been doing the last 8 years in private practice, because getting at the root and letting people grieve, I got to see the truth, the real identity be birthed out of the actual resolution of that trauma, right? And so there is hope for our minds, but we do actually have to take action. And that may mean I've got to be in the word, or I've got to snatch it, like Lisa said, because here's the truth. Our thoughts come from all over the place. We have thoughts inspired by the Holy Spirit. We have thoughts inspired by Satan. We have thoughts inspired by our trauma. We have thoughts inspired by information we've taken in from people, TV, radio. Like, our thoughts come from all over the place. Like Lisa said, up to 70,000 of them a day, right? Like, and so we need wisdom. So I can ask Holy Spirit, help me cast down what's not true. Help me know what's not mine to have. Help me know what's his. Because there's 3 categories. There's what he gave us, there's what's actually ours, and there's what's coming from other places. And so we can ask for wisdom. We don't have to do it by ourselves. And if Holy Spirit will help us do it, and sometimes God sends wise counsel in the form of a friend, a pastor, you know, a small group leader, a coworker, right? So we just being open, asking. But one thing that God is very clear about is that we have to take intentional action. We cannot sit powerless or without authority in those places, because he has given.
Jessica, I wanted to mention to you, I feel like in my heart I needed to say this too, and maybe this doesn't apply to anybody at all, but just sometimes when things happen, and it can be just something, I don't mean like as simple, but I'm just saying like as simple as you're driving down the road and someone cuts you off, you know what I mean? Or you're going through a drive-through and you know, it's the encounter isn't that great, but then you're living for the next 5 miles with that encounter replaying in your mind. We have to be careful to seize that and to capture that too, because when we're rehashing that over and over and over, or we're telling a friend, or we're telling our spouse, or whatever, we're just rehashing it. You got to let the Lord take that. Right. And as Jess is saying, like, what is truth? What is mine? What is God's? What is Satan? Like, what is this? Because when we continue to live through that, we continue to rehash that every time. It is bringing up whatever those traumas are, whatever those stressors are. And we can still bring it up next month. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes depending on the situation, but the sooner and the quicker that we can get to process through that, I think we're in a better place.
And I think I love that you said that, because I think there's the wisdom of it has to come up and come out. But what we have to be intentional about, where is it coming up and coming out? Because if I'm coming up and just rehearsing it, and especially if I get around people who will fuel that rehearsing and get behind that, that's only going to fuel the anger, the resentment, the pain. It may be a temporary relief, like chemically, you may have a temporary relief in that, but the thing inside you has now taken more captivity, right? But it still has to come up and then come out. So if it comes up and comes out with someone who helps me go, what do we really do with those feelings? What do we really do with the information behind those feelings? That's a whole different use of that, because it does need to come up and come out. But the thing is, am I being intentional about where that's coming up, who that's coming up with, and what they help me do with it? Right? Because the up and out is not the negative part. We need it not to sit in here. We need it up and out, but we need it up and out in places that are going to be productive, so that that thing, I can get free of that thing and not be held captive by that thing, that encounter, that person, right? So I love that you said that, because I think that's really important. So I'm going to transition us into the next part of our discussion. So in Proverbs 28:26, it says, whoever trusts in his own mind is a fool, but he who walks in wisdom will be delivered. Our leadership is often shaped by our thoughts, right? Because every decision we make, every thought that every action choice we take comes through the filter of our thoughts, right? And our thoughts are often shaped by our beliefs and experiences, which we've already been talking about. Taking our thoughts captive and renewing our minds are action steps we take to master our minds. The Lord will help us do it, and we see in the Word that He instructs us that we have to do the work. He will help us and give us truth in the words to guide us. And I know we've already talked a lot about that. We kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but I want to get to this next question, which is, why is mastering our mind important as a leader? And what impact does our mind have on our leadership? Another loaded question, but there you go.
Yeah, that one's loaded. Yeah. But it's a good one because, oh my God, we can go back to even how our primary caregivers influenced us and how that loving relationship or not influenced us as leaders. We can go from the standpoint of different personalities and different styles. We can go through leadership authority and how, some people think that, or some certain personality styles respond differently to other personality styles, and then it causes conflict in the workplace. There's so many ways that we can go with that. But if I were to take it from a personal standpoint, as a believer, this is, when God entrusts you with a group of people to lead, you are to reflect His image in front of them. So the only way that we can do that is to be as pure-hearted and as healed as we possibly can, or at least strive towards that. And that sounds like a huge goal, but it's a goal that you walk out. It's a goal that you're continuously learning. It's a goal that you're pursuing because you really, really endeavor to be like God.
Absolutely. You have any thoughts before you have to scoot along, Miss Lisa?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and maybe I'm just the immature leader. Maybe that's where I'm going from. But
we all are.
I think of my time in the military, just as a leader and having, being a supervisor over many airmen. And oftentimes some of the things that you say, okay, how do I say this? As a leader, you are a leader based upon everything that's around you, right? Your past experiences, your future goals, things that you've learned, those kind of things. So the question is why mastering your own mind is important as a leader. You are not going to please everyone. Some of the decisions that you make are going to be hard-lined leadership decisions, right? And so you have to be okay with making those decisions. And depending on the type of leader that you are, I mean, you can justify that. You can, set the scene for it. Like, this is why I decided the thing that I decided. But you have to have your mindset right and your thought pattern right. And you have to know that that's the decision that God gave you and that you're leading that out.
Absolutely.
No matter who gets mad, because ultimately somebody is not going to like the decision that you're making. And so the immaturity part of me is kind of like, how are we sitting in this? Are we fragile and like, I don't want to make a decision because someone will get mad at me? Or are we sitting in those thoughts, of something was said to you at some point, in your past, and is that going to impact you as a leader to make the decision that you need to make? I think it also goes back to what we've talked about already. and even just an organization as a whole, you need people to support you to flesh that out before you're actually having to go before to make that decision, so that you are settled in that decision. God has already given it to you. You know what you're going to do. You've seeked wise counsel to be able to push that out. And then now you can stand on that, right? And if you are a leader that cares about the people, you're going to entertain what they're saying, but you're going to be able to push back with wisdom, but also with grace and love.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think that kind of encompasses that question.
Absolutely. I love that. I watched this thing yesterday. I was on LinkedIn and I saw this reel, and this woman was talking about leadership, management, and she wasn't defending management, but she was kind of giving the perspective from the manager, that a lot of times when you're the leader, what she talked about is you're holding weight, right? When you're in that level of leadership, you're holding weight for everyone below you, and you're holding information from everyone above you. Right. And what she was talking about was one of the tensions in that space is a lot of times when you're in the below, and maybe that's you may not be the manager or the director, or, maybe you're working for somebody and you're having to, part of your stewarding your heart is, how am I stewarding it with coworkers and my manager? Right. But one of the things she talked about was that tension that a leader holds, because they have all this information that they may not be able to disseminate to the people below them. Right. But they're having to make their best decision based on information the people you're serving don't have and you can't give them.
Right.
And so part of the weight of that leadership is you may be holding the discomfort, the disappointment, the disgruntledness, because where people lack information, that scripture about people will perish, without the thing, that's real. And they feel the tension of that because they know there's more there that they don't know. Right. And so you're dealing with the real live breathing tension of what that looks like. And that is leading from the middle. Like Cynthia said, wisdom, grace, love. And you may be the head of the pack, but you're still leading. There's still things coming from above you, whether that's from the Lord or that's from structures happening in your business. And so you're always, when you're in leadership, more, but you're not just holding your own discomfort. You're holding that space for other people's emotions, their celebrations, but also their challenges. And so I have to be able to steward myself if I'm going to be able to steward the weight of not just myself. Right. And so I love
exactly.
Go ahead.
You kind of make me think of the term emotional intelligence. So being able to respond and also be able to steward the response that comes back at you. I mean, it's like a huge movement now in corporate where they're trying to, and it's teachable, they're trying to teach people how to be emotionally intelligent. And what they don't realize is that's just a biblical principle. Yeah, that's all that is. It's a biblical principle that's fleshed out for us, and they're going to, rework it as if they originally created it. But no, it's like, how do we interact with people in a way, make those hard decisions, steward the information, withhold the information, however you do it. And whatever response we get, we're able to take that response, not personalize it, not take offense, not retaliate, and still stand in the position of a leader and lead. So that's in a nutshell, that's what emotional intelligence is. That's the blurb for it,
Absolutely. And people would be surprised that emotional intelligence requires a lot of thought. It's not just it's not just the emotion management part. It requires a lot of intentional thinking about how I'm stewarding my emotions, which we're going to tip into in just a minute. But I want to say a little bit more about the why is mastering our mind important as a leader. And that's because just like everything we take in gets filtered through us and the decisions that we make, our decisions for other people get filtered through that too. Right. And so people are being impacted. And if I'm full of resentment and anger and bitterness, we are lying to ourselves if we say we can make perfectly sound decisions. I'm sorry. We can have a lot of stewardship of the emotions, and some of us are really good at compartments. Okay. I can tell you, my compartments do not always help my ability to make those decisions when I am fully weighted down in the stress and the right. And so, and God has done so much work in that anyway, but like, we have to be intentional because we are lying to ourselves. Scripture says, right? Like it will flow from the heart because those thoughts turn into the heart, which is where we're going in a minute. And out of that flows life, right? That scripture says that. So is life flowing from my heart or is death flowing from my heart? Because if I'm not mastering this thing, those decisions I'm making for other people, those interactions I'm making, the compassion I'm having, am I stewarding that like Christ? Or am I stewarding it through my pain, my woundedness? And sometimes it's about the people we're dealing with, but sometimes that people we're dealing with are just hitting that pain from back there, right? Way back there.
It's nothing
Ain't got nothing to do with it. That's right.
Not a thing.
Not a thing, right? And so that's why we also have to be so intentional because sometimes the thing that we're actually dealing with inside our mind and our heart is not about the person in front of us. Right. And so we have to be intentional about that, especially if we're going to step into a place of leadership. I have to be intentional about that. I'm responsible. When I stand before the king, I'm responsible for my actions for myself, but I'm going to be held more responsible where those places put me in positions of power or authority in someone else's life.
Absolutely.
Right. So Cynthia says discernment, and sometimes there are blind spots. And I love that, Cynthia, because we all have them. That's why we have, it's why God said we need each other, right? Like, I got blind spots, but I also have people who have permission to speak to my blind spots. Not just anybody. Don't be wrong. There are people who think they have permission to speak to my blind spots through motives that are not always so kind. We all have that, right? But there are people who
I was just going to say, I was just thinking about,
go ahead.
I think there's a lag. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope. Say what you're going to say.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking about when Cynthia said the blind spots, I just immediately saw like a bird's nest in my head. And that's kind of what it feels like when you're being bombarded with all of these messages and probably 80% of it is just from the devil. Yeah. And you're having to decipher all of this. And then you have a friend or a partner that comes in and says, girl, now you know, you just done made that up. That is imaginary. There is absolutely no truth. That person is not even thinking about you. And then you're like, oh, okay, yes. And it doesn't even matter how great a leader you are, how prolific a speaker you are, how many degrees you have. None of us are, just off limits to stuff like that. So that's why a good core group of people who can speak into your life is really important, because I tell you what, those bird's nests in your head of confusion, they will try to pop up. They sure will.
Well, and I love that you said multitude of counselors, Cynthia, because the truth is my friends always laugh at me because I tell people I don't have a best friend. I have a team of best friends. I have a council of best friends. And it's because all of us do that. And we need that, whether it's just a few people, whether we have been blessed with more. And the beauty of having community is that different people can speak to different things, right?
Absolutely.
Like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine from high school this morning, and he was just sharing some things with me. And we were talking about caregiving. And I just said, hey, I know I haven't seen you in forever, but I'm willing to be a listening ear because I've held that space. I know what it is to be a caregiver. Right. And not everybody if you haven't been, you don't always know how, right? So there are places and spaces where certain people are going to be able to hold the space. We just want to make sure that they're healthy and that they're safe and that they can be trustworthy, right? Because we don't want just anybody speaking into our life in those spaces. We want them to be godly counsel, right?
Right.
So,
without agendas.
Yes. Because when somebody's agenda is speaking, it is not always rooted in absolute truth. So
true.
So we're going to switch gear because we have a little bit of time. Aisha, do you have any window to go a few minutes over?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, because we have
This is good.
two more questions, and I want us to give space to that. So, so the second part of the leadership shift within ourselves is stewarding our hearts. The heart is an interesting space. We see in scripture that we are to be vigilant and guard it, for from it flows life. But the words also says the heart can be deceitful in Jeremiah 17:9. Emotions are temporary. So to strictly be led by emotion alone can absolutely be deceitful. God also designed emotions, right? They have a job. He designed our emotions to communicate with us. They communicate need, they communicate what we're experiencing in an environment. I always tell my clients they have a job. They have a job, but they should not be the source. They should not be our source of truth. I always tell people it's like the warning light on your dashboard. Emotions are like your warning lights. They're the things that let you know I have a need here, or there's something happening here that needs my attention. And I also think God gave us emotion to accentuate our experiences, right? Like when we think of joy and peace and love, and like that adds to our experience beyond our knowledge. But those feelings alone, resentment alone, doesn't tell me anything.
Right.
We feel it, but it doesn't give me information in the sense of what the root of something is. It poses the question. You have resentment here. You need to talk to yourself. You have anger here. There's things to be explored, right? It doesn't tell you what needs to be explored. It just lets you know something needs to be explored, right? And so my first question is, what are some ways we can steward our hearts?
For me recently, I've become, as I'm given more responsibility, more leadership opportunities, more exposure outside of my comfort zone, I have learned how extremely important it is to guard what people who are coming to you are saying. That wasn't said well. Let me say it again. Everybody that comes to you doesn't have the same intention that you have, which is it should be holistic to to empower your group to finish the project, to whatever. The negative voices that come to you in the form of people, you have to be very, very careful to shut that down really quick. You have to be, because it can really influence your leadership decisions going forward. And it can, if you don't shut it down, influence how you receive people around you or not. And as a leader, I think I'm learning that even more so in my later years than I did when I was younger, because when you're young, you just the latest gossip. What did they say? So but now it really does influence how you make decisions. The people who are coming to you, telling you about this person or that person, or this endeavor and that endeavor. So you have to be really a stronger filter as you're given more responsibility, for sure.
Absolutely. I have a few things I would say. One, I think we have to evaluate our relationship with emotions. And I say that because this is shifting a little bit with Gen Z and the Alpha generation, and even millennials to a little bit of degree, but predominantly speaking, America has been a very stoic-based nation. We are based a lot more in stoicism, which is we disregard feelings. They've got sort of this lesser, baser reputation. And even the word says it can be deceitful, but we have to look at the other side of it. God says from that place, life can flow from our heart. And so it says there's value there, but he says we have to be aware, right? We have to be on guard because life flows from there. Do I want death flowing from my heart or life flowing from my heart? Because that's where it flows from. It doesn't flow from your mind. It flows from your heart. He says so in the word, right? And so it's important that we evaluate our relationship and our understanding of emotions, which is so much of what I do in my practice, right? Like, because we've had sort of this stoic training about emotions. I always tell people, like, I'll give people a feelings wheel and I'll say, you know, every word on this chart, you know, the definition of the word on every word of this chart. But one thing we struggle with is, do I actively use this language to process what I've experienced?
Exactly.
No. And most people haven't. And I tell them every time, you're going to
But
leave
are
here.
we taught to do that? Are we honestly taught to do that?
No, we aren't.
No, not until you enter into a counseling session. Yeah. And it's so important.
It is. And
It is so important.
I'll say this about our thoughts and our heart. There are things that have to heal. We need the word because the word is the standard, right? The truth, and truth, like we always talk about. The absolute truth is the standard and it's the seed. But we also, mastering our minds is a skill set. Mastering emotions is guarding emotions is a skill set. Just like we learn communication skills. They are skills that can be practiced and learned, and we can engage it. And we can't always control everything about it. You're not going to control every thought you have. We have junk thoughts. We said they get influenced all over the place. Emotions alone, right? Like, I can have an initial emotion and it's not really how I feel about something, right? I'm a C on the disc. I have some other letters too, but I'm a strong C, which means I follow the rules and I do not like to be embarrassed. Hardcore. I do not like public humiliation. It's a wonder I'm all over the internet, but but so my initial reaction, my initial emotion sometimes when things happen are not the truth about how I really feel. It's that just guttural reaction I had. So I have to dial it back and go, okay, am I really embarrassed? Am I really angry? I sometimes have to just deal with the initial response my body had. But then I have to go talk to myself and go, what am I actually feeling here?
The self-talk thing. I tell you
Right?
what, that will save your life.
What am I actually feeling here? And who's responsible for what just happened? Because one of the things that trauma does is it distorts the perspective of responsibility. Because oftentimes when we've had experiences with other people, even though it was somebody else's thoughts, emotions, or behavior, it was something they were responsible for. A lot of times that trauma gets miscommunicated in our survival responses, that I have to take responsibility. I have to change. I have to be different. I have to alter this to have my value. That's how the survival system happens. But it creates this false responsibility. It's why anytime someone looks at me and says, you make me angry. No. No, I don't. Now, I'll tell them, you may not like what I said. You may disagree with me. It may have touched something that you feel something about. Right? All those things can be true, and we can talk about all those things. But when you come and say, you make me angry, like I need to fix that, you're putting a false responsibility on me. Right? Or if I do that to you, it's false responsibility, and then we both end up stuck. Right. And the relationship ends up wounded, right? And so sometimes we may have to heal, because sometimes we need help and we need to heal, right? To be able to clarify responsibilities where that really belongs. And that's a whole layer we won't get into today, but because I could go down that road for a long time. But that's why sometimes counseling and coaching is important, because we have to re-alter the belief system around responsibility. But once we've done that, it's a tool for me. When I experience things with people, I stop and go, okay, I'm feeling this. What part of this is mine and what part of it isn't? And I always ask myself that first. What part of this is mine? Right? Because sometimes I may have some responsibility, even if I disagree with that person. And I at least have the responsibility of how I'm showing up and reacting. Right?
Absolutely.
How I'm communicating. So I take ownership of my own responsibility first, because that's the thing I have the most control over. I also let my emotions talk to me. I don't let them inform everything, but I let them be the starter of, okay, what are you trying to tell me? Okay, if I feel betrayed, that's going to tell me something about what I need to address with this person. If I'm feeling disappointed, that's going to tell me there was an unmet need here, or you have an unmet need with me. So let's talk about the need. Because we can get lost in the emotion. If the emotion is the source, then we get stuck there. Because the emotion doesn't actually have all the information to solve the problem, right? It just lets
Never.
us know something. So I have to take the step beyond, because the disappointment, the anger, the frustration, the betrayal, that tells me something. It's that light going, there's something here and it's not good for you, or there's something here and something needs to be addressed so that this can be healthy, right? But I have to take the next steps into exploring what is that. And I explore that with God, with Holy Spirit. He's wise counsel. I use wise counsel, the multitude of counselors we're talking about. So there are lots of ways we can steward our heart. I even say, like,
can I ask a question?
sure.
Just to you. Okay, so you're obviously a clinician and you're more self-aware than the average person. I'm obviously, behavioral sciences, behavioral health psychology. So we've done that work. Are you suggesting that someone can learn how to be more self-aware and to pinpoint those stages to help us become better managers of our heart, or stewards of our heart and our emotions?
That was a perfect counselor question, Aisha. I like the way you set that up. That's asking the question you already know the answer to. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. That's why I said that these are skills we can learn. Obviously, there's more to them, and there's complexity and layers to our thoughts and emotions, but I can learn how to manage my thoughts. I can learn what to do with my emotions. I don't have to be run by my emotions. I don't have to be, but I do have to make an active decision to do something about it, because I'm not just going to automatically know. I have to decide that I'm going to steward my heart. I have to decide that I'm going to manage my thoughts. And I have to talk to God about how to do that. Because for some of us, it may be being in the Word, it may be talking to God, it may be being in a small group. For some of us, it may mean I've got to do some real work. I got to get in there and get some counseling. The beautiful thing is God heals in a multitude of ways with a multitude of experiences and people, but He's a God who heals. And we are not. One of my favorite scriptures is, I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And what that has always meant to me is I will see my healing. Our full healing happens in heaven, but I do not have to wait to heaven to be set free. Woo! I do not. And you do not. But I do have to decide. I have to decide to let the Lord have that part of my heart. And God showed me a long time ago, the thing that got messed with in the garden was our ability to be known and seen fully. So we hide those things because of the shame. We hide those things because we think, if you know all this, you won't love me. And the truth is, in trauma, some of our beliefs about Him got distorted. This was His fault. He didn't protect me. He's not good. And that's not to dismiss. Those things are rooted in very real things people experienced.
Absolutely.
And the enemy used those things to distort the truth, just like he did in the garden. And sometimes it takes healing to be able to reconnect with the truth. And that's one of the things as the church, I think we have to be more responsible about, that when people are healing, not just to say, you just have to believe it, because sometimes people's trauma made it difficult for them to believe. And sometimes they got to do the work on the trauma before they can fully get a hold of those parts of God. And that's okay. That's okay if that's you. It was me. There were some things about God I couldn't get a hold of till I got some healing. I believed, but I couldn't believe until I got some healing. Right? And so I just want to encourage you wherever you are. The key is that I just have to make the decision. Am I willing to let my heart be held in the hand of God?
Amen.
No matter what it looks like. I have to make the active decision to say, here is my heart. Right? So on that note, You got me preaching over here.
You was preaching. I was about to pass the plate, girlfriend. I love it.
My closing, our closing section for today is just like our thoughts, our emotions and the things in our heart have a huge impact on our leadership. For example, if we're angry and hurt, if we're harboring resentment, how might that play out when we're making decisions for other people? We might get easily frustrated, not communicate emotions well, right? We might make even vengeful choices for someone else if we're not stewarding that well. And so emotions impact our actions, especially in the lives of other people. So my last question is, why is stewarding our heart, why does that matter as a leader? And why does it matter when we're in positions of power and authority in people's lives?
I don't know what else could be said after that. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. What about the audience? Yeah, it makes us mature. Yeah.
I got healing and deliverance from Keena, exactly godly counsel. Cynthia says, I had to give the little girl what she never received and learn the language to express my emotions. She said it's a decision.
Absolutely.
Make mature decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I love about that is God is so loving and so kind and so gracious that he meets us exactly where we are. Right? Some of us may be on milk and some of us may have been on meat for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he'll meet you exactly where you are. And he doesn't expect you to get ahead of him. He doesn't expect you to figure this out by yourself. You didn't get here by yourself, right? Wherever here is, because we're all on a spectrum, right? Some of us may be at the beginning of the journey. Some of us may have done tons of healing work and we've done a lot. And I'll say this too, just to be mindful of those who've healed. We can't just heal and let it go because we live in a world that keeps bringing in data and sometimes we got to keep evaluating our heart.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to handle myself even in recent times, right? And so I think it matters when we're leaders, and I think we've talked about this pretty well today, but it matters because every decision we make, it all flows. It flows through our mind, it flows through our heart, and it comes out in our actions. And our command in the earth is to love Jesus, love the Lord your God, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? Love your neighbor like Christ. And so God doesn't just expect that we know. He continues to develop us to be Christ-like. And that's why we have to stay intentional about what's going on in our minds, what's going on in our hearts. We live in a busy world. We live in a life where things are coming and going. We have seasons of success and celebration. We have seasons of challenge and weariness. We have the unexpected that happens that may feel like it just blows us off track, right? Like, and we all know those things are going to happen. And sometimes they happen in a cycle, right? Like, and not because it is a cycle, but that's just the nature of life. Things are going to happen. And so we have to stay intentional no matter where we are on the spectrum, right? Because everything we do flows through us. And it's okay. If you're in a season where, wow, I felt like I was managing this, but I'm realizing I'm up in my heart, right? Or I'm realizing like I just got so lost in what was happening. Wow. I feel the beauty of God is guardrails. He will tap, tap, tap it right back on track.
Pull you right back for sure.
I love that, Cynthia. Grief is tricky. But here's what I tell my clients all the time. Grief is actually the gift of healing from God. Grief is the mechanism of healing. But the lie we've been sold is that it's this pause or this place we don't want to be. And so much of our survival is we're trying to avoid the grief when the grief is what actually gets us in the most healthy way to the other side. I tell people all the time, the number one thing people are trying to do is avoid the pain and the grief. I used to describe it like when I worked with kids, I was like, it's like having this ball. You've got this pain and this grief, and you're doing everything you can to get around that ball without touching it. I said, but the truth is the fastest way to feel better is straight through the middle. Straight through the middle, because grief is being able to celebrate and honor what is lost, because we lose things in this world. We lose people, we lose parts of ourselves, we don't really lose the truth of who we are, but we lose things that we valued about us, about our experience, about other people, relationships, jobs, right? Like, we have loss. And the greatest honor we give is honoring that loss, which is grief. And that can be I tell people grief is every emotion to its extreme. It is.
That sums it up.
That's uncomfortable.
It's kind of like God's invitation to heal.
Yep. And so, and a lot of times the things we do to avoid grief and pain cause more grief and pain. And we didn't do it on purpose. Our minds were just trying to survive it. So be kind to yourself. Most of the time, we didn't just intentionally decide, I'd like to make pain worse in my life, or I'd like to wreck that relationship because I got stuck there. Nobody said that. Nobody ever. Okay.
But it happens a lot.
We've all probably experienced it.
Yes.
But nobody woke up and said, that's what I want. They didn't. And so be kind to yourself, be gracious to yourself. And the real invitation is to partner with the Lord. Partner with the Lord. And my call to action this week is actually spend some quality time evaluating, where am I at in my mind? Where am I at in my heart? And is there anything that needs to shift? And the call to action is, if there is, what's one thing, not all the things, what's one thing I can do this week to step forward in that shift? And you know me, I'm about accountability. So who's the one person you can tell? What's the one thing, one step to do it? And who am I telling? Safe people, right? So I just want to thank everybody for being here. Aisha, thank you for flying as my co-host today. This was such a treat.
This is actually a broadcast that needs to be listened to again. Definitely replay. This is awesome.
Well, just thank you for joining me. And I want to thank all of you out there in the GCBN family, and even those of you who may not be. Lisa gave all of our updates at the beginning today just because of structure for today. So you can heed that or go back to the beginning and hear those again. So we just hope you guys have a great week. We hope this has served you. Next week, Julie will be here probably with Miss Lisa and maybe some other guests. You never know this month. We'll see. So it may be a surprise. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great week, rest of your week. Join us again next week. Prayer will be on Monday. You've got Transformational Tuesday. And then we'll be back here live next Wednesday. So you guys have a great week, and we'll see you later.